The night wrapped the house in a soft darkness, with only the occasional flicker of streetlights outside. I sat in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, as the wine in my glass swayed lazily to the rhythm of the music. Peace, freedom, long-awaited solitude. My husband was away on a business trip, and I had several days ahead where I could just be myself, without his watchful gaze and endless questions. But for some reason, an unfamiliar excitement burned in my chest. It felt as if something was in the air, something on the verge of happening. I wasn't scared, but rather, intrigued. As if an invisible voice whispered, "Tonight, everything will change." I took another sip of wine, traced my finger along the rim of the glass, savoring the moment. Thoughts of forgotten sensations drifted through my mind, things that were once forbidden, things that once made me shiver with anticipation. When was the last time I felt this way? Outside, the wind rustled softly, and for a second, I thought I heard footsteps. My heart skipped a beat, but then I laughed at myself. Nonsense. I was alone. And yet, why did this evening feel so different? I had almost drifted into sleep when the doorbell rang. Loud, sharp, it sliced through the silence of the night, making me jump. Who could be here this late? My heart pounded faster. I set my glass down and slowly walked to the door, a strange feeling creeping up my spine. When I opened it slightly, I saw someone I never expected. Him. The past, buried deep, suddenly resurfaced. Those eyes, once filled with forbidden emotions, met mine. His lips curled into a smirk, as if he already knew I was caught off guard. Surprised? His voice was low, slightly rough around the edges. A warm wave spread through my chest, but I forced myself to stay composed. "I doubt it's a coincidence that you show up tonight." I leaned against the doorway, trying to mask my swirling emotions. He didn't answer immediately. He just looked at me, and the silence between us spoke louder than any words. "Let's talk." "Like old times," he finally said. I knew I should say no. Close the door. Pretend nothing happened. But instead, I stepped back, letting him in. At first, our conversation was light. We laughed, reminisced, but the tension in the air grew thicker with every passing second. I noticed how he looked at me, how his gaze lingered just a moment too long. And then, he took a step closer. Something inside me trembled. I stood on the edge of a choice: step back, or give in to something that had been building between us for years. I'll take a short pause. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Have you ever experienced something similar in your life? Your thoughts and feelings truly matter. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next part. Now, I continue. The air was growing warmer, but not from the temperature. Too close, too long his gaze lingered on me, too many emotions I couldn't ignore. "It's stuffy in here," I stood up, as if movement would clear the fog in my mind. "Do you want to step outside?" His voice was steady, but there was an unspoken meaning in his eyes. I nodded, though I wasn't sure why. To get some fresh air, to walk, to shake off the tension? Or to make sure this night would never be forgotten? We stepped outside, and the night air brushed against my skin, cool and sharp. I walked toward the stables. It was always peaceful there. The horses carried a kind of quiet reassurance. They stood still in their stalls, their breath merging with the sounds of the night. "You still love them?" He leaned against the wooden partition, watching me. I ran my hand through the mane of one of the horses, focusing on the familiar motion. "Yes. They don't betray." The words slipped out before I realized what they meant. He smirked, and I felt my face flush. "Are you sure?" His voice was lower now, softer. I felt him step closer. The horses continued chewing their hay, undisturbed, while inside me, a storm was brewing. I knew I had already crossed a line. And there was no turning back. The silence of the night wrapped around us, making it feel as if the whole world had stopped. I could feel his breath too close, the warmth of his skin, almost tangible. Everything before this moment had begun to fade into insignificance. And then, a sharp, drawn-out sound shattered the night. A horse in the stall let out a loud neigh, stomping its hoof against the wooden floor. I jumped back, my heart pounding wildly. The air thickened around me, my mind rushing back to reality. The horse was looking right at me. Its large, dark eyes gleamed in the dim light, and for a split second, I swore it knew. Time froze. A chill spread through my chest, like I had just been caught somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. Silly, maybe, but the feeling was too real. "She scared us," he said, a slight chuckle in his voice, but I saw the tension in his posture. I swallowed, stepping back. "Or maybe it's a sign," I murmured, not taking my eyes off the horse. The animal snorted, as if agreeing. Or judging. I ran my hand along the horse's neck, but the unease didn't fade. It wouldn't speak. But I felt as though this silent witness would always remind me of what had happened. The morning was too bright. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, as if exposing everything that had happened the night before. I woke up with a heaviness in my chest. The house didn't feel the same anymore. The sound of hooves on wooden floors still echoed in my head, and I could still see those deep, knowing eyes of the horse. I forced myself to get up, trying not to think, not to remember. It's in the past. It has to stay there. But the more I tried to act normal, the more I felt that the world around me had changed. I stepped outside to check on the horses. As soon as I approached the stables, just being near them made me uneasy. I stroked the horse's mane, but in that moment, I heard a voice behind me. "You seem different today." I tensed. It was Victor, one of the stable workers. He had known me long enough to notice when something was off. "Didn't sleep well," I said quickly, without turning around. But he didn't leave. "Interesting. Because I saw something last night." A chill ran down my spine. I turned to him, keeping my face neutral. "Like what?" He studied me closely, his eyes slightly narrowed. The horses were restless. And I noticed someone sneaking into the stables pretty late. My heart seemed to slow down, and then started racing. "You know, I've been working here for a long time. I noticed things." A strange unease settled over me. He wasn't saying everything outright, but his tone. He knew more than he should. The horse snorted, as if reminding me it was still there. It remembered. And now, so did someone else. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts on this story. Have you ever experienced something similar? Your thoughts and feelings are incredibly important to me, and I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video so you don't miss more thrilling stories. Wishing you a wonderful day. If you listened to the end, write in the comments, "Some witnesses never forget."